Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to my chapter-by-chapter read-through of J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. We're going through the whole of the book, chapter by chapter, talking about all sorts of, I hope, interesting aspects to them. I started with the Two Towers, and I moved on to the Return of the King, and now I've come around again to the Fellowship of the Ring. And we are now in Book 2 of the whole book, that is the Lord of the Rings, and we are at the chapter called The Council of Elrond, which is vital for, it's one of the three vital scenes in the Fellowship of the Ring, and it's one of my favorite chapters in all of fantasy literature. The plot so far has been that the Middle-earth, the West, is troubled. The Dark Lord Sauron in his dark land of Mordor is regrowing power. Flames are now seen in Mount Doom. Emissaries and spies of his are everywhere now, where for a long time, 1,000 years, there had been that front had been quiet. Now, all of the east of Middle-earth is aware that something is brewing, that some massive thing is brewing. Only the wise, with a capital W, know that it is very likely the end of their age, the end of the Third Age. But everybody can feel it. Everybody can feel that Sauron is alive and active again, that he's planning something. And the key to that something is the One Ring that I've got right here on the end of a bookmark, because I don't trust myself to put it on my finger. I would take the ring in an effort to do good. The ring has been found. And among the many, our heroes, the Hobbit Frodo and his servant Sam and Merry and Pippin, plus their friends, the wizard Gandalf and the ranger Aragorn, have been making their way to Rivendell, which is the natural place you would go. It's one of the few remaining strongholds of the elves in Middle-earth, ruled over by the elf lord Elrond, who is half human. And directly connected, as we're going to see, with the legendary events that caused this whole thing to happen. Those characters have been making their way to Rivendell, and as we saw just recently, they barely make it. The Nine Riders, the most fearsome servants of Sauron, are on their trail and are only put off at the very end. But everyone has been wondering what's going on. Everyone in Middle-earth has been wondering what's going on. And it turns out in the chapter of the Council of Elrond that we learn that all of them have been making their way to Rivendell, because if anybody's going to be able to understand this, it's going to be Elrond. Other great elf lords might be known for other things, but Elrond is known for wisdom and lore. So people are seeking out Rivendell in order to ask him questions, and that is what we get in this chapter. We get the most elegant and one of the most protracted info dumps in all of literature. That's what this chapter basically is. There are the writers among you will see right away. It might seem like heresy to think this way about Lord of the Rings, but you'll see right away. There are 4 or 5 more organic ways that Tolkien could have done this. Instead, he chooses to do it by having characters talk all day. And that's what we get in this chapter. And it has been a source of great conflict for me, because I love this chapter. My strong temptation was just to read it, just to read the whole of the chapter of the Council of Elrond. I ran that by my lawyer, and he said, don't do that. Definitely don't do that. So instead, I thought we would talk about it at length, and then I thought, well, okay, but if you talk about it at length, you might talk about it at too much length. You love it so much that you might give it 5 videos. You don't want to do that. So I'm going to split it in 2. I think that's probably fair. We'll split it in 2, and we'll go over the 2 most important first things that happen. One is that among the people who are gathered at Rivendell are an emissary from the dwarves. We've already talked about Glóin, and they have come to Elrond because they have been approached by the enemy. A dark and obviously evil rider approached the dwarf Lord Dane in his hall, came to his gate. And I want to read you that part. It's very good. I've read it many times before on this channel. Then about a year ago, a messenger came to Dane, but not from Moria, from Mordor, a horseman in the night who called Dane to his gate. The Lord Sauron the Great, so he said, wished for our friendship. Rings he would give for it, such as he gave of old. And he asked urgently concerning hobbits, what kind they were and where they dwelt. For Sauron knows, he said, that one of these was known to you on a time. At this we were greatly troubled, and we gave no answer. And then his fell voice lowered, and he would have sweetened it if he could. As a small token only of your friendship, Sauron asked this, that you should find this thief, such was his word, and get from him, willing or no, a little ring, the least of rings that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and an earnest of your goodwill. Find it, and the 3 rings that the dwarf sires possessed of old shall be returned to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Find only news of the thief, whether he still lives and where, and you shall have great reward and lasting friendship from the Lord. Refuse, and things will not seem so well. Do you refuse? Here we learned that that months ago, this was the state of Sauron's knowledge. He did not know whether the ring bearer was alive or dead. At this his breath came like the hiss of snakes, and all who stood by shuddered. But Dane said, I will say neither yea nor nay. I must consider this message and what it means under its fair cloak. Consider well, but not too long, said he. Time of my thoughts is my own to spend. For the present. As threatening as you want to get in a stronghold of dwarves, I know that this is a Nazgul, but I would worry for his safety if he made a whole group of dwarves angry. But Glowin tells as much as he can about the mission of some dwarves to Moria, and to reopen it and start a great work, and also of this visit. And Glowin also makes clear that his neighbors, the neighboring realms and kingdoms near him, have also been approached, and they're afraid. Then it comes time to talk about the ring itself, the origins of the ring, where it comes from, what actually happened in that distant day. We've had a couple of feints towards this in the book so far, but here we get first-hand knowledge. Because one of the things to remember, one of the wonderful things to remember about The Lord of the Rings, is although the lore involved, the stories go back for centuries or millennia, some of the characters in Tolkien are immortal and have lived through all of that. Now, some of them have lived on the periphery. Tom Bombadil has been through all of that, but he didn't participate in any of it. Treebeard has been through all of that, but he didn't participate in any of it. The wizards have been there, but they're not very forthcoming about what they have and haven't seen. But there's also the elves. Dwarves live a very long time. They live centuries. Hobbits can clear a century with difficulty, and then after that it's remarkable. Humans don't, unless they're from Numenor. But elves live forever. Unless they're killed. And then only their body dies. So Elrond remembers the fall of Sauron. He remembers the whole thing about this one ring. He remembers it all personally. And he tells about it. I want to read a bit of that. I remember well the splendor of their banners. This is the last alliance of elves and men facing Sauron on the slopes of Mount Doom to fight him. It recalled to me the glory of the elder days and the host of Beleriand. So many great princes and captains were assembled, and yet not so many nor so fair as when Thangorodrim was broken, and elves deemed that evil ended forever. And it was not so. And then Frodo jumps up. You remember? You remember? Says Frodo, speaking his thought aloud in his astonishment. But I thought, he stammered as Elrond turned towards him, I thought the fall of Gil-galad was a long age ago. So it was indeed, answered Elrond gravely, but my memory reaches back even to the elder days. Arundel was my sire, who was born in Gondolin before its fall, and my mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien of Doriath. I have seen 3 ages of the west of the world, and many defeats and many fruitless victories. I was the herald of Gil-galad and marched with his host. I was at the battle of Dar-galad before the Black Gate of Mordor when we had the mastery, for the spear of Gil-galad and the sword of Elendil, Aglos and Narsil could not be withstood. I beheld the last combat on the slopes of Ordorodrin, where Gil-galad died and Elendil fell and Narsil broke beneath him, but Sauron himself was overthrown, and Isildur cut the ring from his hand with the hilt shard of his father's sword and took it for his own. I want to point out here just a little thing here. Typically, it is pictured when people picture The Lord of the Rings, including Peter Jackson when he filmed it. People tend to assume a lot of things that aren't actually in the text. The tiniest and most vexed of all those is that Tolkien's elves don't have pointed ears or upswept eyebrows. It is clear in The Lord of the Rings, and especially in the Silmarillion, that if you don't know someone's an elf, you will need to find out. You won't be able to look at them and tell. That's a minor thing. The major thing is that it's always assumed by readers of The Lord of the Rings, and it was immortalized on film by Peter Jackson, that the last alliance of elves and men defeated Sauron by taking the ring from him. The narration in the Council of Elrond makes it clear that that is reversed. That is not the order of things. Sauron was defeated even though he was wearing his ring, and then it was hacked from his finger. How that happened, we have no idea. The details of this are murky and stay that way. We don't know this crucial moment in the history of the Third Age of Middle-earth. We don't know how Sauron was overthrown. But it's clear that he is overthrown before the ring comes off his finger, not afterwards. But anyway, it's a small nerdy thing. I'll read just a bit more here. Alas, yes, said Elrond. Isildur took it, as should not have been. It should have been cast into Erodrin's fire nigh at hand where it was made. But few remarked what Isildur did. He stood together. He alone stood by his father in that last mortal contest, and by Gil-galad only Círdan stood and I. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. This I will have as weregild for my father and my brother, said he, and therefore whether we would or no, he took it to treasure it. But soon he was betrayed by it to his death, and so it was named in the north Isildur's bane. Yet death maybe was better than what else might have befallen him. Again, this is a sticking point among Tolkien fans, and also lots and lots of first-time readers of this book that I have shepherded through here over the decades, where they get to this point and they say, okay, maybe not everybody present, but Círdan and Elrond both know what this One Ring is. They know it's not just a trinket. They know it's not a weregild. Sauron just had it on his finger. They know what it is. They know that they must destroy it. It can't pass to good hands. There are no good hands. It makes your hands bad. So it needs to be destroyed. And Elrond says that not many noted what he did, but I'm pretty sure that the people who were right there over Sauron's body did notice what happened to the One Ring that gave him all his power, that was invested with so much of his power. So first-time readers of this chapter say, what? If Isildur snuck it off the finger, or hid it somehow, fine. But if he didn't, if he took it for himself, while there were elf lords there who could easily kill him, or force it from him, why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it? Why didn't they take the ring from Isildur and destroy it? There are all sorts of highfalutin justifications that I've heard for this over the decades, that, that would have made them a little better than Sauron, or that they might have fallen under the ring's sway themselves. It's 10 feet to Erodrin. It's 10 feet to the fires of Mount Doom. If Sam Gamgee can make that trip carrying Frodo like a sack of wheat over his shoulders and not succumb to the ring, then I'm pretty sure that Círdan the shipwright could do it. And they know that it had to be done. So, I guess what I want to know is the tragedy and downfall of the Third Age all Elrond's fault? Is this all Elrond's fault? He was right there. But anyway, and I want to just finish up here with Elrond's summary of the long fallout of that day. And then we'll stop for now. I'll go back to the Council of Elrond tomorrow, and we'll deal with the two other really important stories. Elrond says, only to the north did these tidings come, and only to a few. Small wonder it was that you have not heard them, Boromir. From the ruin of Gladden Fields, where Isildur perished, 3 men only came ever back over the mountains after long wandering. One of these was Otar, the esquire of Isildur, who bore the shards of the sword of Elendil, which Aragorn is carrying on his person here at the Council of Elrond. And he brought them to Valandil, and the heir of Isildur, who, being but a child, had remained here in Rivendell. But Narsil was broken, and its light extinguished, and it has not yet been reforged. Fruitless did I call the victory of the last alliance? Not wholly so. Yet it did not achieve its end. Sauron was diminished, but not destroyed. His ring was lost, but not unmade. The Dark Tower was broken, but its foundations were not removed. For they were made with the power of the ring, and while it remains, they will endure. Many elves and many mighty men, and many of their friends had perished in the war. Anarion was slain, and Isildur was slain, and Gil-galad and Elendil were no more. Never again shall there be such a league of elves and men, for men multiply, and the firstborn decrease, and the two kindreds are estranged. And ever since that day, the race of Númenor has decayed, and the span of their years has lessened. Elrond's a bit of a Debbie Downer, he has cause to be, but the ring wasn't lost. The ring was found. The ring was right there. We know it's chain of custody. Isildur took it. He took it from Sauron's hand. Now, Elrond says here that Sauron was defeated, but he was diminished but not destroyed. What is going on here? I don't know. Again, this is an instance where Tolkien is incredibly vague. Is Sauron's body laying there? Obviously, in some way it is, because they cut the ring from his finger. So they have no power to detach the ring. They have to cut it off his fingers. So he must have fingers. So what is he? Is he unconscious? Is he dead? Is his physical form just lying there? And if so, well, I guess what I'm saying is I would have liked a little more detail here about one of the most crucial moments in all of Tolkien's Legendarium. A little more detail would be nice. But that, Elrond tells the story of that, of the One Ring. That is the story of the One Ring. It was forged. He tells the story of the forging, and that the Celebrimbor and the Elf Lords knew immediately. As soon as Sauron put his ring on, they knew immediately what he had made. They hear his vow about the ring, the most famous verse in this book. Maybe. The most famous verse in this book, although not all who wander are lost, has got to be second. I'm sorry, I love it too. But that's going to do it for the Council of Elrond for now. They're talking all day long. But we have learned two important things. One is that the reason all of these emissaries have come to Rivendell is because of what the dwarfs repeat in this council, which is that Sauron is extending the fingers of his malice everywhere now. We've seen his spies already in the Shire. Everyone else has felt them too and wondered what to do. And when you wonder what to do in the Third Age of Middle-earth, you go to Elrond. Which is why, in addition to emissaries from the dwarfs, we also have another character we're going to meet next time, but we also have emissaries from the elves. The greatest elf lords who are still around send their emissaries, with one exception. We don't get anything from Galadriel. But Erestor comes from the Havens, from Círdan the Shipwright. Why Círdan the Shipwright doesn't come himself, I don't know. And also, as we're going to find later on, Legolas comes from the Woodland Realm. From the Woodland Realm, he comes from Thranduil, from King Thranduil. King Thranduil and Círdan the Shipwright are beings of immense power. I don't know why they wouldn't come themselves. Certainly they can travel. Things haven't got so bad yet in the west of Middle-earth that elf lords of enormous power can't travel on their own. Why aren't they here? Why are they sending emissaries to what they have to know is the greatest peril of their age? No idea. But lots of other emissaries are here too. We're going to go over all of that next time. I'm going to try to keep the Council of Elrond down to 2 videos because we've got the rest of the book to do. It's got a couple of great moments in it. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. This was painful. I wanted to go on for 2 hours. I'm going to wrap this up for now, and we will continue with the Council of Elrond next time. This will be pretty much the only time where we take more than one video for a chapter, but I think it's worth it for this. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll be back next time. Thank you, BookTube.